Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Hi.
Hey.
I'm here to talk about the good news. And that reminds me of a story, actually.
Okay.
Do you remember? This is such a good story to me because it's so uncommon for you. It's a story about you.
Oh,
you know what I'm going to say,
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, you had a coworker at some point, right? Who was a very, very, very nice Christian guy, right?
Yes.
And he was leaving his job to go on a missionary trip, maybe to like Spain or something.
Yeah, it was for human trafficking. It was oh
my God, I can't believe I'm making fun of this guy in this.
He's just the nicest guy.
Well, okay, but I'm not making fun of, okay, but this isn't about me. This is actually about you. Because you were in the car with him, right?
No, we went to lunch. We went out to lunch.
Yeah, but you were like driving back from lunch or something. I thought you were in the car with him.
Maybe.
I don't know. But he was telling you and like some of your coworker friends about his plans. And he was like, I'm going to go, spread the good news. And you who have been going to church, like you don't go to church now, but you grew up going to church. You grew up in a super Christian household. You knew exactly what he meant by that. Sure. And you, who never messed with anyone, couldn't help but say the good news about what good news or whatever.
It was more like he was asking me if I had known the good news. It wasn't like I'm going to go spread it and then I made fun of him. It was kind of like, hey, have you heard the good news?
Oh, he actually asked the question?
Yeah.
And so
it was too on the nose and I
what good news?
And I knew exactly what he was talking about. And it's fine.
But then he said about Jesus.
But it was so cliche that I just couldn't. I just
find that very
I had to poke
funny
at the cliche.
Because you never mess with people like that. Like, it's just not in your nature to be that snarky to someone, especially like such a nice person. So nice. But you messed with him. And I found that to be delightful.
It's very much a Rachel move that I channeled in that moment.
I don't know why you did that. But because maybe it's something about how you having like grown up around a lot of those types of people.
Maybe, but
something.
It was also just like, I knew what my response was supposed to be.
And you didn't want to
And I didn't want to
You wanted to rebel.
I wanted to, it was like, here's the script that we're both following right now. And I was like, that's boring. I don't want to follow that script.
I think that's a bit of a knee-jerk response to your childhood.
Maybe.
I think.
Probably that too. Yeah. But still, when you're like living in the middle of a cliche, you're just like, I can't do this.
So anyway, I just find that to be one of Kristen's snarkier
So here we go. You can tell me you want to share the good news and I'll be like, what good news?
About coaching. No, I'm sorry. We're not talking about Jesus today, though. I have mad respect for...
Also, the book that we're talking about does talk about God and spirit
a
lot.
It does. But we're not here to... Well, we are here to share the good news about the artist's way, though I'm not sure it's good news. More on that later.
Stay tuned.
No, we're talking about one-on-one coaching, which we are in the middle. Today is the midpoint of our one-on-one coaching enrollment, which means we are currently taking on clients. I got to tell you right now, we do not have unlimited space. We have quite limited space. And we've already had people reaching out to us. I haven't even officially opened enrollment yet as of the time we are recording this.
And we already have people
reaching out, former clients, new people. So if you want to do it, like, just don't dally. I'll still talk to you. It might be like a month from now, but I don't know. If we get such an influx, I might have to just put you on the wait list and say, oh no, talk to you whenever I can.
We got a lot going on right now. More things than our
This book didn't do me any favors on that regard. More on that later.
Yeah, more on that. But we have so many things going on behind the scenes that we haven't even announced yet. So our calendars are a lot like a lot compromised.
Yeah. So limited space for clients And I say that because we're not the type of people who are just going to take people on and shove them in. Like,
no, exactly.
It's so that we can do the highest quality job with each person. I'm not going to compromise my abilities as a coach, so that I can like take on more people.
No, that's not an integrity to be serving you and like half-heartedly giving you.
And being like, what's your name again?
Right. Like so many people.
That's just not my style. No. Sorry. Quality over quantity. So that's what this is about.
That's why we have to cap our numbers.
So more info about coaching in the episode notes.
Yeah. So technically you have until next Friday, but I would not necessarily wait.
No,
if
definitely
you're
not.
Thinking you want to do this thing.
And again, seriously thinking about it. Please, I've got so much going on. Do not waste my time with your half-heartedness. Know what I'm saying?
Doesn't mean you have to be 100%.
No, I said half-hearted. If you're like 3/4 hearted, maybe I'll talk to you.
Sure. Yeah.
But like no less than that.
Yeah.
If you're at least 75% like into the idea, I don't want to talk to you.
Well, it's not a good use of either of our time, like not just mine or Rachel's, but yours either.
No.
Because we're going to be talking about what happens next and what you want to get out of coaching. And if you're not even sure you want to do it, then that's just
half-hearted leads to half-assed. You know what I mean? I don't need either of those.
No.
No half hearts, no half-asses. Okay? I want your full ass.
Full ass.
Full heart, full ass, can't lose.
Oh God.
Also, my neighbor is like dropping things upstairs. I'm like very annoyed with him. He's usually a very quiet individual, but he's being loud today. I don't think you guys will be able to hear it though. Okay, so more.
Should we talk about this book now?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that like they just go to if they want to know more about coaching, they go to the show notes or they go to one-on-one coaching page on our site.
Yeah, we have the link directly. Wherever you're listening, scroll, you will find a link directly to the page.
Or you can go on clarityonfire.com and go to the Work With Us tab and read more about one-on-one coaching there and fill out a form to talk to us about the possibility.
Yep.
And see what your options are. Okay. This fucking book.
Do you want to? Okay, you have an admission to make before we even start.
Okay. So this book, well, it's called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. It's a spiritual path to higher creativity. It's like a 12-week. It's almost like a course in book form.
It's not so much a book. It's more of a program.
It's a program. It's a process for getting.
It goes week by week for 12 weeks.
And there's a lot of homework. So
make your admission first, and then I will make my admission.
Okay, so I failed miserably at this book. But the book did not fail me. Okay?
Exactly.
So, all right, okay. So I feel like this book I equate it to like a cleanse. So have you ever heard of a Herxheimer reaction? I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically what happens when you're hungover. You have a bunch of like alcohol in your system and then your body's like, no, that's actual poison. So the next day it has to purge it and you feel like shit, but it's actually because you're getting rid of the toxins in your body.
Some people do like juice cleanses and that sort of thing too.
You feel worse before you feel better and you have like a very intense reaction to getting healthier. That is what happened to me reading this book. And I didn't even read the whole book. Like I'm pleading the fifth on how much of this book I read. But I did not even read the whole book because I believe an intense Herxheimer reaction to this book, which means I probably needed it. But sometimes you just can't go whole cleanse. You literally will kill yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think I would have killed myself had I actually read and like done the book literally beat by beat by beat. But what I am saying is if you did, holy crap, would your colon be clean?
Oh my gosh.
Like your spiritual colon would be so clean.
I actually did the very beginning of this book and I started and then things just started to get really intense and I had been so excited. You guys, I got this book in the mail. I was so excited. I was like,
you were excited?
I was genuinely excited. I couldn't wait for this book to show up because I wanted to start doing morning pages.
I was never excited about it because I think I was avoiding what I knew it was going to make me do. And now it's making me do it, even though I only read like a third of it.
So I didn't really know what it was going to make me do. And then it made me do some stuff. And then I just put it aside and I just and then I had to come back and I had to read it. But I didn't, because at that point it was too late. I just had to read the book. I didn't do the week by week process because already what I had done just brought up too much stuff.
Yeah.
And then I had to do too much stuff. And then I was like, I'm scared of this book. So then I just read it like a book and you're not supposed to read it like a book. You're supposed to read it week by week and do the thing. So I did finish it, but that's like the same thing as reading about a diet and then eating all the same crap that you've been eating. You know, like,
well, I feel
you
like
can't
what
just
I did
know
is,
what to eat and then not do it and then feel better.
I feel like there was a 3-week juice cleanse and I got 2 days into it. And then I was like, I'm going to keep sipping this one drink for the next 3 weeks and read about this cleanse. That's what I did. And even then my body was like, oh, this is intense. I'm purging all this stuff just from that one little drink.
So, telling you, if you really and truly want to unleash your inner creative of whatever form takes, this book will do that in
Watch
ways
out.
that, like, be careful what you wish for.
Too hot to handle. You know what I mean? Like, wear oven gloves. When done properly, I actually think this book would move serious blocks for you on every level. I think one of my first points about this book is that, yes, it's like a spiritual path to higher creativity, but everything I read was translatable to the blocks I see in my clients, just in general, as people, like people pleasing. You read this book and you thought of it less as I'm trying to become like an artist and I'm just trying to become a self-expressed person who's not held back by the views and the fears of what other people will think. This book would do some serious crap for you.
I would say that is how I read this book, because I'm not like an artist. I'm not like I don't have a particular creative outlet. I mean, I write, yes, but I'm not like,
you don't sit down and write short stories or poems or whatever.
So I didn't have something in mind that I was like, this is the thing that I want to develop my creative talents in. I just wanted to be a more creative thinker, be a more creatively expressed person. And that alone, just that broad intention, led to all kinds of stuff I didn't expect.
So, okay. I want to read just a little thing. We're going to, as we normally do, we're going to read some things from the book as we go. And just before we even dive in, I wanted to share this up front because I think this is something that's going to be a block for people just in general. And I need you to know it now before we even dive in. Okay. No matter what your age or your life path, whether making art is your career or your hobby or your dream, it's not too late or too egotistical or too selfish or too silly to work on your creativity. One 50-year-old student who always wanted to write used these tools and emerged as a prize-winning playwright. A judge used these tools to fulfill his lifelong dreams of sculpting. Not all students become full-time artists as a result of this course, but in fact, many full-time artists report that they've become more creatively rounded into full-time people. That's what I think the point is. Like, this is about being a self-expressed whole person who lives in a way that feels vibrant and alive, and creativity is a huge part of that. And there's no proper age or time to start. It's never too late to, become more artistic. It's never too late to let go of people pleasing. It's never too late to become more of who you are. That's the point.
Yes. Yeah. And I know that some people are probably going to be thinking, well, I'm not like the creative type, like, just like I said, I'm not a painter. I'm not a writer. I'm not a poet. I'm not an actor. So is this even relevant to me?
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, it is. She gives an example later in the book about this woman who is a lawyer, and like really a workaholic lawyer. And she has gotten very like overly professional in her whole energy. She took on her lawyerness.
Clearly,
in
I didn't
life.
get to this part.
and by reading this book, she just started doing little things like bringing flowers into her home and bringing like fluffy pillows into her space and dressing in a way that felt a little bit more feminine and colorful. And like, that was the creativity that she was lacking in her life. It wasn't like, I quit my lawyer job and am now a potter. No, she just needed to bring some more creative and color and vibrancy into her daily experience, and she became a more well-rounded person. So that's really what we're talking about. You can take this very literally, like, I want to be a professional artist. Or you might just say, I feel stuck and I feel kind of stagnant in my life and I need a little bit of color thrown back in.
So think of this book as big magic before there was big magic, which we've done a book club episode before a couple years ago.
Came far before, and in fact, really influenced Liz Gilbert.
Well, read the back. There's a quote from Liz herself on the back of the book.
This quote is one of the reasons I was so excited to read this book, and now I understand it better.
Oh my God. And Liz did the whole thing.
I know she did.
So like,
she's just like jackhammer. She goes hard at things.
Know that Liz did the whole thing, and then this is what happened.
Okay. This is her quote directly. This book has been around for a long time, and I hope it sticks around forever. It guides the reader through a fascinating and fun 12-week-long program of exercises and explorations that help loosen up one's artistic self. It takes you on a journey that will cost you nothing, aside from the guidebook, and it brings much insight, gently helping you see what is holding you back and showing you how to move forward. 3 times in the last decade, I've committed to doing the Artist Way program. Can you imagine doing it 3 times?
No, but like, she's Liz Gilbert, so like, I'm not surprised she did it and got the results.
Yeah. And each time I've learned something important and surprising about myself and my work. Just to show how influential it's been to me, the first time I did the program, I had decided that by the end of it, I wanted to, 1, travel to Italy and learn Italian, 2, go to an ashram in India, and 3, return to Indonesia to study with the old medicine man I'd once met there. We all know what that decision led to. Without the Artist Way, there would not have been Eat, Pray, Love. I just got shivers in my body reading that again, even though I'd already read it like 3 times.
I know, man.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about in terms of power.
I was skeptical, and then I like dabbled with this book, like
barely
to like the 20th degree of what Liz Gilbert did. No, I mean like 1/20th, not the 20th power. And I already feel like I can't handle it. So yeah, I'm not surprised that that's what happened. Okay, so it's interesting to note that the way this book is organized is each chapter is about recovering from something. So there's like recovering your identity and recovering your sense of strength, recovering your power, safety, that kind of thing. And I'm not surprised that that's how she frames it, because she talks about her struggles with addiction, and she's like very kind of like steeped, I think, in the 12-step program, and like has gone to AA, at least when she wrote that. Like, I think that was like a fresh thing for her. And, AA treats recovery like a spiritual practice. So she sees it the same way. And I got to look up something in the book now. Okay, spiritual doesn't mean religious, by the way.
She makes a very clear point about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can call it whatever you want. But she says, if you're creatively blocked, and I believe all of us are to some extent, it's possible, even probable, that you can learn to create more freely through your willing use of the tools this book provides. Just as doing hatha yoga stretches alters consciousness when all you're doing is stretching, doing the exercises in this book alters consciousness when all you're doing is writing and playing. Do these things and a breakthrough will follow, whether you believe in it or not, whether you call it a spiritual awakening or not. In short, the theory doesn't matter as much as the practice itself. What you're doing is creating pathways in your consciousness through which the creative forces can operate. Once you agree to clearing these pathways, your creativity emerges. In a sense, your creativity is like your blood. Just as blood is a fact of your physical body and nothing you invented, creativity is a fact of your spiritual body and nothing that you must invent.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she means by spirituality. It's more of a channel, through which higher consciousness flows, and it's just something you have to plug into.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to read you 10 of her basic principles of, I think she calls them spiritual electricity.
Well, yeah, because she thinks of it as something you plug into. Like, you don't have to believe in electricity to use it, or even understand how electricity works. And to be frank, I barely understand how electricity works. I use it all the time. So, I mean, I know like Ben Franklin and a key and a kite. And is that true? Did that happen? That's about all I know. Tesla, Henry Ford.
You're just throwing out words.
Inventors. That's some shit. That's some shit.
Does not display any understanding of how electricity works.
Nope.
And you know what? It's fine. You turn a light switch on.
Volts. Amps.
You can know as much as Rachel about electricity and still use it every day.
Oh my God. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so these are the basic principles of spiritual electricity.
Okay.
1, creativity is the natural order of life. Life is energy, pure creative energy. 2, there's an underlying indwelling creative force infusing all of life, including ourselves. 3, when we open ourselves to our creativity, we open ourselves to the Creator's creativity within us and in our lives. 4, we are ourselves creations. And we, in turn, are meant to continue creativity by being creative ourselves. I love that it's like a cycle. 5, creativity is God's gift to us. Using our creativity is our gift back to God. I love that one. I love that one. Because so many people think it's...
translate it to whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. 6, the refusal to be creative is self-will and counter to our true nature. 7, when we open ourselves to exploring our creativity, we open ourselves to God, which she defines God, G-O-D, as good, orderly direction. G-O-D. Love this.
Just like the way of things.
Yeah. 8, as we open our creative channel to the Creator, many gentle but powerful changes are to be expected. And sometimes not so gentle.
It was not gentle.
I didn't feel like it was
I haven't slept well in days because of this book.
We're really talking it up. I feel like we're scaring people.
Well,
but just know what you're getting into. 9, it is safe to open ourselves to greater and greater creativity. It is safe. It is safe. It's safe.
Okay.
10, our creative dreams and yearnings come from a divine source. As we move toward our dreams, we move toward our divinity. I like that because a lot of people, I think, mix them up, right? Like a spiritual thing is like service and doing good works for other people. It's not painting in my room by myself. That feels selfish.
It's not ambitious either, usually. And
There's
like creativity can be ambitious.
It can be ambitious, which can be quote unquote unspiritual.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And it can be sometimes selfish. I could go to I could go out to lunch with my friend, or I could protect this time that I said I was going to work on my art.
Yeah.
I should go be with my friend. Well, yes, and it's not selfish to do your art. In fact, it's spiritual.
Yeah. You're like giving back to good, orderly direction. Okay. So here's how the book works. It's a 12-week program. You have to commit at least an hour a day to it, but some days you're going to be doing longer stuff. She says it's more like a 7 to 10 hour a week commitment.
I think that
because
having read through all the different exercises, I'd say that's solid. I would say 10.
I would say 10 too.
Like expect to treat this like a part-time job.
That's a lot. So think about it. In 3 months, that's 120 hours, right?
You can see why. Yeah. And it's really focused and directed work that you're doing. So it's like taking a really intensive grad school class or something.
I mean, it really is like taking a class and you're just committing to this class for a semester, sort of.
And it's really every day. You're doing something at least every single day.
And just think about what changes in life when you do anything every day.
I know.
And then when you're doing something like this, that someone is like kind of like very specifically in a structured way walking you through, it just does. It changes things. So there's also, there's an emotional journey this book will take you on, as obviously we have experienced. So she says, this is part of her what to expect section. While there's no quick fix for instant pain-free creativity, creative recovery or discovery is a teachable, trackable spiritual process. Each of us is complex and highly individual, yet there are common recognizable denominators to the creative recovery process. Working with this process, I see a certain amount of defiance and giddiness in the first few weeks. This entry stage is followed closely by explosive anger. I think I got stuck there in the course's midsection. The anger is followed by grief, then alternating waves of resistance and hope. This peaks and valleys phase of growth becomes a series of expansions and contractions, a birthing process in which students experience intense elation and defensive skepticism. This choppy growth phase is followed by a strong urge to abandon the process and return to life as we know it. In other words, a bargaining period. People are often tempted to abandon the course at this point. I call this a creative U-turn. Recommitment to the process next triggers the free fall of a major ego surrender. Following this, the final phase of the course is characterized by a new sense of self, marked by increased autonomy, resilience, expectancy, and excitement, as well as by the capacity to make and execute concrete creative plans. If all of this sounds like a lot of emotional tumult, it is. When we engage in a creative recovery, we enter into a withdrawal process from life as we know it. Withdrawal is another way of saying detachment or non-attachment, which is emblematic of consistent work with any meditation practice. In movie terms, We slowly pull focus, lifting up and away from being embedded in our lives until we attain an overview. This overview empowers us to make valid creative choices. Think of it as a journey with difficult, varied, and fascinating terrain. You're moving to higher ground. The fruit of your withdrawal is what you need to understand as a positive process, both painful and exhilarating.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of what she just said is very reminiscent of the 5 stages of grief.
I was thinking that as
like she said,
as you were
bargaining
reading
and
that back.
like, you know, acceptance and then anger and then
Mhm.
denial too. And so why, I'm just like a slight tangent here, but I think it's really interesting. Why is the creative recovery process and the grief process so similar? And I think that's because recovery means there's something you've lost, you need to, you know, get back, but there's something you're going to have to lose in order to gain the next version of yourself. So becoming something always means letting go of something else.
And you're grieving that.
And you're grieving that. And you're grieving, you know, who you could have been. You're grieving maybe who you should have been. You're grieving, you know, how easy your life would have been if you could have kept your head buried in the sand. Like there's a lot that you actually have to emotionally process and grieve in order to become the next version of yourself, one who's more self-expressed and creative and like the highest version of yourself. That's why I think there's a lot of similarity between this and grief recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, there's 2 major tools that you have to use all the way throughout the program.
Every week.
Now, there's different things that she'll add in every
Each week. She gives you like slightly different prompts.
Yeah,
and
or adding on to different prompts. But there's 2 things that stay consistent throughout the entire program. Yeah. And I had a strong reaction to one, and I think Rachel had a strong reaction to the other.
Yes.
Which is interesting. So you're supposed to do both.
Well, I just flat out refused to do one of them.
I kind of did that with another.
I guess I kind of did it in my own way, but it doesn't really count. So let's just talk about it.
So the first tool, this is the one that I had the biggest reaction to, is what she calls morning pages.
Yeah.
So before I even talk about this, I'm just going to read you her introduction to this concept of morning pages.
Yeah.
In order to retrieve your creativity, you need to find it. I ask you to do this by an apparently pointless process I call the morning pages.
Not pointless.
Not pointless. You will do the pages daily through all of the weeks of the course, and I hope much longer. I have been doing them for a decade now. I have students who have worked with them nearly that long and who would no more abandon them than breathing. Ginny, a writer-producer, credits the morning pages with inspiration for her recent screenplays and clarity in planning her network specials. I'm superstitious about them by now, she says. When I was editing my last special, I would get up at 5 a.m. just to get them done before I went into work. What are morning pages? Put simply, the morning pages are 3 pages of longhand writing, strictly stream of consciousness. Oh God, another morning. I have nothing to say. I need to wash the curtains. Did I get my laundry yesterday? Blah, blah, blah. They might also, more ingloriously, be called brain drain, since that is one of the main features or functions. There's no wrong way to do morning pages. These daily morning meanderings are not meant to be art, or even really writing. I stress that point to reassure the non-writers working with this book. Writing is simply one of the tools. Pages are meant to be, simply, the act of moving the hand across the page and writing down whatever comes to mind. Nothing is too petty, too silly, too stupid, or too weird to be included. The morning pages are not supposed to sound smart, although sometimes they might. Most times they won't, and nobody will ever know except you. Nobody is allowed to read your morning pages except you. And you shouldn't even read them yourself for the first 8 weeks or so. Just write 3 pages, stick them into an envelope, or write 3 pages in a spiral notebook and do not leaf back through. Just write 3 pages and then write 3 pages the next day and the next day.
She wants this to be by hand. I think that's important, right? Like it can't be typed.
Yeah. I mean,
I guess if you had to do it that way, but like, I think that there's something valuable.
There is.
Your brain has to slow down a little bit to actually physically write as opposed to type.
I've actually heard a study that proves that it engages a different part of your brain. It engages the more creative part of your brain when you're physically writing.
It's not as technical.
Now, if you're not going to do it at all, I'd rather you type them than do nothing, frankly. But to do it, quote unquote, the right way, it should be the first thing in the morning and it should be 3 pages written longhand.
This is way more powerful than you think. It seems like a dumb thing to do, truly. And sometimes it is kind of dumb. Like I did this for a week and a half before I ended up having a huge idea that downloaded into my brain that I didn't even connect to morning pages until this morning when I went back and was like, wait, I'd been doing morning pages for like a week and a half. And then I downloaded this huge idea that now I'm in the middle of randomly. And she talks about that later in the book too. She'll be like, part of your blocking this whole process will be you start it and then you'll have all these ideas and inspiration. You'll be like, that's a weird coincidence. I did exactly that. But it seems like a waste of time, especially because there are mornings when you're just like, this is dumb and I'm tired and
I'm a piece of shit.
Right.
You know,
or like she was saying, I have laundry to do today, or I should be
wash the
groceries.
curtains. That's like a real leap in let's try to find anything to do that's not this.
I know. We've been washing our curtains. Like,
I mean, you do need to
maybe
sometimes like laundry. I mean, I don't know. Clean them. I mean, you got like real drapes. What's happening?
What's happening?
Okay.
Oh man. But I also think the 3 pages is important because in my experience, the first page or 2 really is just that dumb like list of things in your brain that you need to do. It's essentially like your to-do list or your crankiness. But when you have to keep doing it for 3 pages, by the end of the 3rd page, you've often gotten somewhere interesting.
Okay.
Because you have to kind of clear through. Yeah, that was at least my experience.
Guys, I didn't write a single fucking morning page. Okay.
Welcome to this book club.
I didn't do it.
Did not prepare for. No, that was at least my experience. I don't want to say mine.
Oh, I came up with all
of
excuses
everyone.
of why I wasn't going to do it. No, the dog needs me to take her out to pee. And then by the time we get back, it's like, I need to like make my like morning juices and breakfast and stuff. And then when am I supposed to sit down and do it? No, like I definitely just avoided it. But you want to know what? This book it still got me.
Well, I'll tell you, I did this for about a week and a half, had a really big idea, kept doing morning pages for maybe another week or so. And then conveniently just was distracted and busy. And then the holidays came and then I just can't do it then. And so it's like it kind of downloaded too much and I got overwhelmed. And then I was like, put that right back in the box.
You want to know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I probably should start doing morning pages because I actually think the reason I'm struggling to sleep is because I'm processing too much. Likely because this book is giving me ideas and it's triggering things and I need to actually drain my brain.
Yeah,
that's what the point of morning pages are. So actually, it's just my fault that I'm feeling this way right now because I didn't follow directions.
Right. When you're having a bunch of ideas, but you're not processing them. And which is why this is one of the basic tools. Is because you have to process everything that's coming up. It's going to be a very emotional experience.
Or you just have to like get your brain to like a certain point of neutral before you can keep going. So
if your brain starts getting too full of too many ideas, you got to drain some of that out.
Yeah, and the bullshit is really what gets drained. So she talks about that. One of the biggest,
as an internal processor, I'm not as good about talking things out. So there's a lot that collects into my brain. And it was really helpful to me. And I wish I kept doing it and I wanted to start doing it again. Because while I was doing it, I was like, oh, I actually have space in my brain for the rest of the day to think about stuff.
I think I'm going to start doing it.
It really does make it.
I think I'm too sleep deprived now. And I've been like shamed a little bit, like in a good way.
Yeah. I honestly think if you only did morning pages for 12 weeks,
that would be valuable.
That would be such a valuable thing.
Yeah.
Even if you did not do a single other thing in this book.
Because it is kind of a form of meditation. So, if you meditate every day for 3 months, your brain's going to look different.
Yep.
So one of the biggest things that's valuable about morning pages is that it separates you from your inner critic. It teaches your logical brain to just sort of step aside for a second and let your artist brain come out to play. And she calls the logical brain the sensor. She says, the sensor is part of our leftover survival brain. It was the part in charge of deciding whether it was safe for us to leave the forest and go out into the meadow. Our sensor scans our creative meadow for any dangerous beasties. Any original thought can look pretty dangerous to our sensor. The only sentences, paintings, sculptures, photographs it likes are the ones that it's seen many times before. Safe sentences, safe paintings, not exploratory blurts, squiggles, or jottings. Listen to your sensor and it will tell you that everything original is wrong, dangerous, rotten. Who wouldn't be blocked if every time you tiptoed into the open somebody, your censor, made fun of you? The morning pages will teach you to stop listening to that ridicule. They'll allow you to detach from your negative censor.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that makes sense because you have to examine your thoughts with a little bit of distance from the morning pages. And so you start to see patterns, you start to question things a little bit more because you have to. So, okay. One more piece about this that I want to bring up is your mood doesn't matter on any given day. It's not like, I'm feeling like kind of annoyed today. I don't feel like doing morning pages. Usually those are the days when they're most powerful. So let me read you a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is just calling me out. Continue.
Often, the students most resistant to doing morning pages are the ones who come to love them best.
Okay.
Just talking directly to you.
Okay.
In fact, hating the morning pages is a very good sign.
So like, I still get an A.
I think you still have to do that.
Okay. Right. Continue.
Loving them is a good sign too, if you keep writing even when you suddenly don't. See, that was my experience. I loved them. And then I was like, nope, and just shut it down. A neutral attitude is the third position, but it's really just a defense strategy that might be masking boredom. Interesting. Boredom is just what's the use in disguise. And what's the use is fear. And fear means you are secretly in despair.
Dang.
Wow. So put your fears on the page. Put anything on the page. Just put 3 pages of it on the page.
Bitch, just write 3 pages. That's all she wants you to freaking do.
Trying to say it in as many ways as humanly possible. Pretty much any reaction that you have to them is a powerful one.
Okay. So that was tool number 1, like the basic tool that you have to do every day.
And again, I'm telling you, if that's all you take from this whole podcast and you just do that for a few months, it will change you in ways you don't
You'd be more
expect.
fine than I am right now, I think. Okay. So yeah. I know I need to do it.
Okay. So tool number 2.
The artist's date. So this is a weekly thing. This I could do. I'm going to read you what it is. The other basic tool of the artist's way may strike you as a non-tool, a diversion. You may see clearly how morning pages could work, yet find yourself highly dubious about something called an artist date. I assure you, artist dates work too. Think of this combination of tools in terms of a radio receiver and transmitter. It's a 2-step, 2-directional process, out and then in. Doing your morning pages, you are sending, so notifying yourself in the universe of your dreams, dissatisfactions, hopes. Doing your artist date, you are receiving, opening yourself to insight, inspiration, and guidance. But what exactly is an artist date? An artist date is a block of time, perhaps 2 hours weekly, especially set aside and committed to nurturing your creative consciousness, your inner artist. In its primary form, the artist date is an excursion, a play date that you pre-plan and defend against all interlopers. You do not take anyone on this artist date but you and your inner artist, aka your creative child. That means no lovers, friends, spouses, children, no taggers on of any stripe. If you think this sounds stupid or that you will never be able to afford the time, identify that reaction as resistance. You cannot afford not to find time for artist dates.
Do you spend quality time with each other? Troubled couples are often asked by their therapist. Parents of disturbed children are asked the same thing. Well, what do you mean quality time is the usual Weasley response. We spend a lot of time together. Yes, but is it quality time? Do you ever have any fun together? The therapist may press. Fun? Whoever heard of having fun in a rotten relationship like this one? Do you go on dates just to talk, just to listen to each other? Dates, but we're married or too busy or too broke or too whatever. Too scared, the therapist may interrupt. Hey, don't sugarcoat it. It is frightening to spend quality time with a child or lover. And our artist can be seen as both. A weekly artist date is remarkably threatening and remarkably productive. Yeah, it's kind of like you're spending time with yourself all the time.
Why do I need to do that?
Quality
time. I think there's a real theme of self-respect here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you respect yourself enough to spend quality time with yourself and to nurture yourself on that level?
Self-respect and self-love.
Well, that's the same thing. I think of those as the same thing.
Yeah, well, and particularly
hard to love something if you don't respect it.
There's such an emphasis on treating your inner artist like a child, like you're the parent and it's a child. And this love, this kind of unconditional love and support so that it feels safe and it feels free and it can express itself. Because you know what happens to children when they are shut down
We're going to talk
by
about
their
that
parents.
in a minute.
Yeah. So this is really encouraging you to give it quality time the same way that you would want to spend quality time with your kids.
So again, it's play. It's like, what would you do if you were a kid and you wanted to play? Would you like, adventure outside and explore? We have one of my friends took some coloring books to the park and colored in the park for 2 hours when she was doing her artist date. I sat and wrote for 2 hours a couple of times. And that, I think, knocked some serious crap loose for me. Mm-hmm. Just like sitting and writing. And it was like it was more like creative writing.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done anything like that in such a long time. And it kind of fevered my brain. And now I can't escape from it. And I also like go out. I mean, like I feel like I'm very good at taking myself on artist dates. I love it. I mean, 2 hours is a long time though.
It is. Yeah. And I will say, this is another thing that I read later in the book that made it feel a little bit more accessible to me, which was she tells you don't necessarily wait until you have huge blocks of time. Like if all you have is a few minutes, but you can go outside and just look at a beautiful flower, right? Just treat the artist within you to something beautiful or fun or unnecessary. Because so much of our day is just what is necessary, what is on the to-do list. So the most important thing is that you give it loving attention. But these artist dates are kind of like infusing a bigger dose of that. It's supposed to be a little bit longer stretches of time. But if all you can do on any given day is 15 minutes here or there because it's COVID and you have kids at home and you're trying to work, like do what you can because that part of you is feeling neglected.
Also, I want to go back to what she said about how the morning pages and the artist date are like an in-out experience. Like one's a transmitter, one's a receiver. And I'm like, oh, I love the artist date. I'm receiving, but I'm not transmitting. So I'm like, it's coming in, but it's not getting out. And so now I can't sleep and my brain is fevered and I have like 8 million ideas and I am overwhelmed. So like, it's my fault that I only did half of it. And now I'm having like a negative experience,
So this next part I'm going to read is relevant to...
Wait, no, you skipped my part.
Yeah, you have to read a part first.
So she says, commit yourself to a weekly artist date and then watch your killjoy side try to wriggle out of it. Watch how this sacred time gets easily encroached upon. Watch how the sacred time suddenly includes a third party. Learn to guard against these invasions. Like, so much of this book is about, like, you have got to be really good with your boundaries and you've got to be really... like self-respecting and committed to your process if you want to heal.
And she calls out the part of you, like why you are self-sabotaging.
This book is a major call out.
It's such a call out. And I was like, oh, I mean, even this next section, I so related to this. You are likely to find yourself avoiding your artist dates. Raising my hand. Recognize this resistance as a fear of intimacy, self-intimacy. Often in troubled relationships, we settle into an avoidant pattern with our significant others. We don't want to hear what they are thinking because it just might hurt. So we avoid them, knowing that once they get the chance, our significant others will probably blurt out something we do not want to hear. It's possible they will want an answer we do not have and can't give them. It is equally possible we might do the same to them and that the two of us will stare at each other in astonishment saying, but I never knew you felt like that. It is probable that these self-disclosures, frightening though they are, will lead to the building of a real relationship, one in which the participants are free to be who they are and who they become, and to become what they wish. This possibility is what makes the risks of self-disclosure and true intimacy profitable. In order to have a real relationship with our creativity, we must take the time and care to cultivate it. Our creativity will use this time to confront us, to confide in us, to bond with us, and to plan. The morning pages acquaint us with what we think and what we need. We identify problem areas and concerns. We complain, enumerate, identify, isolate, fret. This is step 1, analogous to prayer. In the course of the release engendered by our artist date, step 2, we begin to hear solutions. perhaps equally important, we begin to fund the creative reserves we will draw on in fulfilling our artistry. This resonates with me because I'm so afraid to do an artist date and get all the downloads that you're talking about, Rachel. And then I have to do stuff with them. And I already feel so overwhelmed all of the time that I'm like, don't give me more. Yeah. Even though I want more, but I'm afraid of more. It's kind of like the fear of success that I've talked to a lot of clients about, where they're like, what if this works? And then I have to do it. And then it gets bigger and then it gets out of control. And so part of me is like, I'll just process what I've got in the morning pages. I can do that. That helps me with my overwhelm. But if you give me more, I'm afraid of that. So I haven't been committing to these as much because I'm more resistant.
Leave it to me to skip to step 2. You know, be like, I don't like that. I was going to skip ahead. What is this? Cutting corners a little bit. No. Yeah. So I think I have had an interesting experience where it's like, oh, you gravitate towards something that you find more palatable or something or comfortable, and you avoid the thing that's actually the best for you. And that is maybe like the medicine for your situation. Okay.
Right. Now that we've gotten into the tools, I feel like we should talk about really what this book is about, which is uncovering your blocks. So let's get into some of the things that block. We won't get into all of them. Because that's the whole book.
Of every book we've probably ever done, I think we've covered this one the least in terms of all of the content that's in here. It's just too much.
It is too much. And
it's also frankly, not appropriate for us to get to that point because you haven't done the work yet. You know what I mean? And this is definitely a cop-out because I didn't read the whole book. So this is very convenient for me to be saying.
Well, I did. And I'm going to tell you as someone who read it but didn't do everything, that
covering
it doesn't actually get to the point. You have to do it. Yeah. So the few things that I did, there was a couple of exercises or questions that I did, like even just a few of them that I answered in passing. I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Uh-oh, what am I going to have to do about that? So if I just tell you about them, you're not going to have the experience. So you do have to read the book, but we do want to get into some of the things that are the most common blocks for artists, which honestly might prevent you from even trying to open this book. So let's start there.
And not just for artists, I think for people. Like none of these are just, but all of these are just blocks. They're not just creative blocks.
True.
As a coach, I'm like, this is not just about creativity. This is about any form of self-expression and just being yourself. Mm-hmm. So I think it's helpful for you to know, like unequivocally, what to look for so that you don't then use it as an excuse not to change. Mm-hmm. So, okay.
Do what we say, not what we do.
Hey, I am doing stuff, just like sipping really, really slow on that drink. Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the big things is, I kind of phrased it this way. This isn't how she said it, but denial of your true nature, which is that you are inherently a creative, or, you know, if you don't like that word, self-expressed, whole, well-rounded person. And you are meant to have desires and have creativity and to let it unfurl. But we deny ourselves that.
And she calls that denial shadow artists. That we all have a shadow artist within us. And again, don't get too hung up on the phrase artist. But that's just the best way to describe the creative side of you.
This book is called The Artist's Way. So like get over the fact that the word artist is used. Okay.
And so shadow artists are created when those creative impulses that you had as a kid are snuffed out. Usually by your parents, but it could be by anybody. It could be by other kids, could be by teachers who make you feel like it's not good enough or it's pointless. And it's usually they're trying to protect you, at least your parents, I'll say. They're trying to protect you because, if you do too much creative work, if you try to be an artist or be a creative person, that's not like real life. You have to get a real job. Yeah. And so
it's set out of just fear because it's their job to provide for you. And
it's out of love.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like fear for your survival.
Exactly. So well-meaning, but it is destructive.
And like, if you do have parents who are supportive of it, she says it's often sort of in the context of fluff. Like, it's ancillary to normal life. It's an extra little thing, an extracurricular thing you can do. It's not like
a
part
cute
of
hobby,
life.
like a little artistic side hobby, but it's not your job. It's not your main focus.
She says, fledgling artists may be encouraged to be art teachers or to specialize in crafts with the handicapped. Young writers may be pushed toward lawyering, a talky, wordy profession, or into medical school because they're so smart. And so the child who is himself a born storyteller may be converted into a gifted therapist who gets his stories secondhand. Too intimidated to become artists themselves, very often too low in self-worth to even recognize that they have an artistic dream, these people become shadow artists instead. Artists themselves, but ignorant of their true identity, shadow artists are to be found shadowing declared artists. Unable to recognize that they themselves may possess the creativity they so admire, they often date or marry people who actively pursue the art career they themselves secretly long for, or read the books, or binge listen to podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, there's a whole section in this book. I don't know if you got to this point or not, where there's 1 week, one of the 12 weeks, where you're not supposed to read anything. And I would argue listen
TV
to
too.
anything.
Oh, watch Netflix,
Yes.
like anything, like take in anything creatively.
Which she says is like the hardest week for everyone that she takes to the program. They're like, but I have important things to read. And I have like, she's like, I don't care. For 1 week, don't take in new information.
Don't take other people's work in.
You'll be amazed by what words and what ideas come into your own brain when it's not full of other people's ideas.
How much space you have.
So if you find yourself consuming, or being attracted to other artistic or creative people, you probably just have a shadow artist within you that it's much safer to cling on to other people's creativity than your own.
So recovery involves like from being a shadow artist. And really like this is just a huge theme of this whole book is nurturing the inner artist child that was suppressed back to life. She kind of, I mean, I feel like she's sort of inner artist, inner child is the same thing.
Yes.
Like if you don't like thinking of it as inner artist, think of it as your inner child.
Well, think about how creative children are inherently.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
And that's why I think this book has really big implications far beyond creativity, because all of these exercises are relevant to like nurturing your inner child, bringing that like sort of pure self-expressed little person who got maybe crap piled onto them back to life. And that's the best version of yourself. Really, the best version of yourself was like the you probably can't even remember because it was, you know, to be cliche, the you that existed before the world told you who to be. That's what this book is really actually helping you do, is get back to be that person.
And when you let that inner child / inner artist, again, same thing.
Yeah.
When you let them come out and play, what they make is sometimes going to be ugly
and embarrassing.
You're not going to want to show everyone. It's not going to always be good. And that's okay. Like that's actually part of the process. I have a client right now she's getting back into painting and she's always loved that, but getting back into it. And she's like, oh, but I have this image in my mind of what I want it to look like. But then when I make it, I can't do that. And then I don't want to do it. It's like kids don't have that problem. Kids are just like, I want to draw a thing. And
Look
then
at
they
this
draw a
shit cat I just drew.
And they're proud of it.
Yeah.
They love it.
Yeah.
So when you let your inner child come out, it might make some ugly stuff sometimes.
Well, and then your shadow artist or your censor or whatever, your gremlin
shut it down.
Is going to use that as evidence that you suck and that you shouldn't try to do it. And you can't, how are you supposed to get to the point where you feel good if you don't allow yourself to be bad first?
Yeah. So I want to read you a little part in the book about this. Remember that in order to recover as an artist, you must be willing to be a bad artist. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. By being willing to be a bad artist, you have a chance to be an artist. And perhaps, over time, a very good one. When I make this point in teaching, I'm met by instant defensive hostility. But do you know how old I will be by the time I learn to really play the piano or act or paint or write a decent play? Yes, the same age you'll be if you don't. So let's start.
She just spoke a word on that.
I mean,
like, yeah.
You're going to get older anyway.
you better hope you get old.
Yeah.
you're going to drop dead or you're going to get old.
Not to get real dense real quick, but yeah.
You're either going to get old and do something or you're going to get old and do nothing. It's the same damn What are you going to do with the time you have?
I loved that line. It's like, well, yeah, you're still going to be that age. So
yeah,
you want to finally do the thing, even if it's bad for a while, or just don't do it.
I love that. So, okay, another big block, this is not going to come as a shock to anybody, is negative self-talk, AKA gremlin energy. She calls them negative affirmations, which I really like. So I want to read you what she says about affirmations. So she's all about the affirmations. Personally, I've never been a fan of affirmations, but I think the way she explains it helps me get on board a little bit more. So she says, affirmations help achieve a sense of safety and hope. When we first start working with affirmations, they may feel dumb, hokey, embarrassing. Isn't this interesting? We can easily and without embarrassment bludgeon ourselves with negative affirmations. I'm not gifted enough, not clever enough, not original enough, not young enough. But saying nice things about ourselves is notoriously hard to do. It feels pretty awful at first. Try these and see if they don't sound hopelessly syrupy. I deserve love. I deserve fair pay. I deserve a rewarding creative life. I am a brilliant and successful artist. I have rich creative talents. I am competent and confident in my creative work.
I love that she describes them as like syrupy and annoying, because that's the problem that I sometimes have with affirmations is, especially if you try to go too far.
And you don't really believe it.
Yeah, then you feel like you're lying to yourself. And then instantly you hear that critic come in and be like, yeah, okay.
Well, like, oh, look at you. You sound so dumb saying this.
Right.
But she's right that when we say
the most extreme negative stuff, we're like, yep,
that's
sounds right.
True. And it's like, well, if the nice ones are syrupy, shouldn't the mean ones be like acid or something? Like, what's the opposite of sweet and syrupy? Like throwing acid on yourself.
Well, she gives some examples of creative affirmations. And I really like these because they're not the super.
Don't read all of those. There's like a million.
Yeah, there's 20. I'm just going to pick a few.
Okay.
But
I'm like, no, don't give me too many affirmations. I can't handle that.
Well, yeah, it starts to just get redundant. But as you'll hear when I pick out a few examples, they're not like, I'm the best artist, or I'm like, it's not taking it so far that you instantly in your head reject it. These feel, they feel like ones that you can buy into right off the bat.
Okay, go ahead.
As I create and listen, I will be led. My creativity heals myself and others. Through the use of a few simple tools, my creativity can flourish. My creativity always leads me to truth and love. There is a divine plan of goodness for my work. I am willing to create. That's a great one. I'm willing to create.
I think I could even say that and believe it.
I am willing to be of service through my creativity. There's a whole bunch of I am willings. I really like that start of an affirmation. I am willing to experience my creative energy. That's it.
Oh,
I'm willing to do that. I can buy into that affirmation.
Yeah, I'm willing to do it, but I won't write my morning pages. So how willing are you? You know what I mean? I mean, it calls you out on your hypocrisy a little bit. Okay.
It does.
Okay, so that's actually helpful. I like that. It's rare that I find a book that tells me things that are new in the realm of like personal development. Been in it so long that it's like, yeah, this is all just the same crap filtered. But some of this is like actually new to me, which is very refreshing, which also might be why this book is having an intense impact on us, is because it is novel. Okay. Another big reason we are blocked is because we don't trust ourselves and we don't trust the process. We don't trust, I don't know, the universe or whatever. We don't trust things to work out. That's a big theme of this podcast in general, not just this episode, but we just have a lot of fear that we control and we grip and everything. Oh my God. So I felt very called out by the following. So here we go. Trusting our creativity is new behavior for many of us. It may feel quite threatening initially, not only to us, but also to our intimates. We may feel and look erratic. This erraticism is a normal part of getting unstuck, pulling free from the muck that has blocked us. It's important to remember that at first flush, going sane feels like going crazy. What? I'm going to continue. There's a recognizable ebb and flow to the process of recovering our creative selves. As we gain strength, so will some of the attacks of self-doubt. This is normal, and we can deal with the stronger attacks when we see them as symptoms of recovery. Common self-attacks are, okay, so I did okay this week, but it's just a temporary thing. Okay, so I got the morning pages done. I probably did them wrong. Okay, so I need to plan something big and do it right away. Who am I kidding? I'll never recover. Not right away. Not ever. These attacks are groundless, but very convincing to ourselves. Buying into them enables us to remain stuck and victimized. Just as a recovering alcoholic must avoid the first drink, the recovering artist must avoid taking the first think. For us, that think is really self-doubt. I don't think this is any good.
I love that. Still don't take the first thing.
Going sane feels just like going crazy.
It's what you've gotten accustomed to.
I mean, that is just, that's a nugget.
Mm-hmm.
That's about everything. That's not just about creativity. She talks a lot in this book, and we don't even get into this about we sort of get into it in a second, but that there's a lot of different types of people you end up having to distance yourself from if you want to recover creatively and be the best version of yourself. And that'll make you feel like you're going crazy.
Oh, well, you just teed me up perfectly because
nice.
The next thing, so we're talking about trust, challenges with trust, having trouble trusting yourself. And sometimes you might not have trustworthy people around you. So you're getting feedback from people and they're not really, they might think they're in your corner, but they're not because they're also going through their own
your
blocks.
Stuff is triggering their stuff.
And so they become untrustworthy in their support for you. So here's a section about that. Blocked friends may find your recovery disturbing. Your getting unblocked raises the unsettling possibility that they too could become unblocked and move into authentic creative risks rather than bench-sitting cynicism. Be alert to subtle sabotage from friends. You cannot afford their well-meaning doubts right now. Their doubts will reactivate your own. Be particularly alert to any suggestion that you have become selfish or different. These are red alert words for us. They are attempts to leverage us back into our old ways for the sake of someone else's comfort, not your own. She also, and again, like you mentioned at the very beginning, a lot of correlation and references to actual recovery, like 12-step recovery. And she references later, it's the same thing as if you tried to quit drinking or tried to quit eating bad food and all your friends are still doing that, they're going to pressure you. Yeah. Not trying to pull you down.
Well, no, actually, yes. Some of them are alcoholics and they don't want to look at their own bullshit. True. And so they're going to try to get you to drink because they don't want to look at their shit.
And they're going to pressure you back into old habits because you're threatening them and their way of life. So you have to make sure that you're sharing this with trustworthy people. And you might have to take some steps away from people who are not going to be supportive of this, or at least not share this part of your life with them. Because if you share something too soon, if we think of your inner artist like a little child, that's exposing them to things that they're not ready for, and they're going to shut down really quickly. You have to be a little bit more protective of this creative energy that you're playing with, and protect it from people who might be trying to stomp all over it.
So the last bullet point I have on the list this is the last bullet point period that I have, is for ways we get blocked, is misunderstanding the healing process. Kristen's going to read something, but also I realized I wrote my note wrong and I'm asking you to read much more, I think, than I'm actually going to ask you to read a lot. I don't know. Just read and then I'll tell you to stop. Okay.
Okay. So this is about our relationship to anger.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I missed a quote, didn't I?
Oh, yeah.
No, I want to go back and read that quote. Sorry, this is really awkward. Okay, but I didn't want to miss this quote because I thought it was so good. This was in reference to the last section. To know what you prefer instead of humbly saying amen to what the world tells you ought to prefer is to have kept your soul alive. Robert Louis Stevenson.
Yeah, that's good. She has little quotes on the side
Every
of
single
every
page.
and
Yeah.
some of them are just gold.
To know what you prefer instead of humbly saying amen to what the world tells you ought to prefer is to have kept your soul alive. That's what this movie's about.
Yeah, keeping your soul alive.
Yeah, like
Yes.
like what are you willing to do to keep your soul alive? That's really the question. Okay, now we can talk about anger, and this is truly where I got the most spanked.
And this is in a bigger section where we're talking about misunderstanding this whole healing process. Okay.
Yeah.
Anger. Anger is fuel. We feel it and we want to do something. Hit someone, break something, throw a fit, smash a fist into the wall, tell those bastards. But we are nice people. And what we do with our anger is stuff it, deny it, bury it, block it, hide it, lie about it, medicate it, muffle it, ignore it. We do everything but listen to it. Anger is meant to be listened to. Anger is a voice, a shout, a plea, a demand. Anger is meant to be respected. Why? Because anger is a map. Anger shows us what our boundaries are. Anger shows us where we want to go. It lets us see where we've been and lets us know when we haven't liked it. Anger points the way, not just the finger. In the recovery of a blocked artist, anger is a sign of health. Anger is meant to be acted upon. It's not meant to be acted out. Anger points the direction. We're meant to use anger as fuel to take the actions we need to take to move where our anger points us. With a little thought, we can usually translate the message that our anger is sending us. I love this anger as essentially a compass.
That's not the first time, I've said this before, I've read this before, but just hearing it in this way, in this context.
In the context of creativity.
Yeah.
You don't always think of creativity as creating anger.
Or that it's a sign of health.
Right.
Like a lot of people do not have that level of comfort at all with anger. So to see it actually as a sign of health is sort of profound.
And I'll tell you, Rachel and I both have experienced anger in this process.
That's like the most common sensation I have.
And again,
engaging with this book.
We barely even dabbled in the process. So you can trust that if you really commit to doing this, you're going to have bouts of anger. And that's not something to be worried about. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It's actually pointing you exactly where you need to pay attention.
She says, anger is the fire. Oh, wait, no, hold on. When we feel anger, we're often very angry that we feel anger. Damn anger. It tells us we can't get away with our old life any longer. It tells us that old life is dying. It tells us we're being reborn, and birthing hurts. The hurt makes us angry. Anger is the firestorm that signals the death of our old life. Anger is the fuel that propels us into a new one. Anger is a tool, not a master. Anger is meant to be tapped into and drawn upon. Used properly, anger is useful. Sloth, apathy, and despair are the enemy. Anger is not. Anger is our friend. Not a nice friend, not a gentle friend, but a very, very loyal friend. It will always tell us when we've been betrayed. It will always tell us when we have betrayed ourselves. It will always tell us that it's time to act in our own best interests. Anger is not the action itself. It is action's invitation.
Mm.
I mean, I don't even have anything to add to that.
I know. So well said.
Just reframing that in general is probably one of the most important things you could do.
If you just expect, you might get angry in this process sometimes. And if you stop judging it and making yourself wrong for feeling anger and just looking directly at it, saying, all right, there's something here, then you can uncover some really deep stuff because of anger, if you're not afraid of it.
Okay. And the last thing we're going to talk about in terms of misunderstanding the healing process is growth.
Yeah. And how we get that wrong.
We get that wrong very often.
Here's what she has to say about growth. Growth is an erratic forward movement. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Remember that and be very gentle with yourself. A creative recovery is a healing process. You are capable of great things on Tuesday, but on Wednesday, you might slide backward. This is normal. Growth occurs in spurts. You will lie dormant sometimes. Do not be discouraged. Think of it as resting. I really, in my mind, when I read that, what comes up is the image of seasons.
Yeah.
The creative process is just like creating anything where it has to be nurtured. It has times when it blooms. It has times when it has to kind of lie fallow. And if you just ride those waves and stop asking yourself to be equally creatively productive every single day, that's not how it works. Yeah. Growth is cyclical, and sometimes it looks like you're going backward, and that's just part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we think of the seasons, we think of even that feels kind of linear to us. Spring, and then summer, and then fall, and then winter. But it's messier than that.
When you're in winter, you often don't feel like this is the next phase of the process. You feel like, oh, everything died and everything slowed down and it's super dark and I lost all my momentum. Like when you're in it, it doesn't feel linear. But if you zoom out long enough, you can see, oh, we needed that to go into the next phase of growth.
Also, like creativity, I don't know who first said this. I think it's just one of those things that's just now a thing. It's just ubiquitous. But creativity is destructive.
Mm-hmm.
Like in order to create, you also have to destroy in equal measure. I mean, like when a bird is hatching, it destroys its container.
And there is some chaos.
And it's messy and it's ugly, you know? But that's part of the process too. So yeah, just because you're doing great one day and then you're back to feeling like shit the next doesn't mean you're not growing. That's just part of what growth means. Mm-hmm. And reframing that is really important if you want to have the stamina, I think, to keep going. Mm-hmm. So that was this very messy episode about the artist's way.
Can I just bring up one more got
to call in 10 minutes, so hurry up.
That's fine. One of the things that she has you do multiple times throughout the book, and this is kind of ending on the idea of possibilities, creative possibilities, is she asks you to imagine if you could live 5 alternate lives.
I love that question. Yeah, I did see that.
And then she asks you in later weeks, do it again. Do 5 more. Do 5 more. Do 5 more. Do 10 more. And then you have to imagine, like, wow,
really out there.
What
shit.
kind of things would I do? And then you actually have to do some of the, not live a whole life, but take a tiny step.
Yeah.
And I just want to challenge people to do that because it was one of the most fun questions that I pondered throughout this.
Well, you have to spit them out really quick now because people are going to want to know.
Oh, well, the main one that I actually have acted on is I would want to ride horses, and eventually I would actually love to do.
You haven't acted on that lately.
I didn't even tell you, but I bought a Groupon for a horseback riding lesson. It's too cold to do right now, but when it gets a little bit warmer.
Singular horseback riding lesson?
Yeah, but
just
then
one.
that was what the Groupon was for.
Okay.
It's one of those like deal things.
Okay.
So I want to challenge people. Like that's what she's not saying go quit everything and now go become a horse trainer. But if you have this notion of like, wow, in an alternate life, I would love to do blank.
Actor,
is there a tiny thing that you can do?
Writer, FBI profiler.
I would also love to, this is very similar, but train service dogs.
Archaeologist. Like the mummy type shit. I wanted to be a journalist for a long time. I'm not actually sure I would want to do that.
I thought about that. I wouldn't actually like it, but I think
I did want to do that for a long time though. Mm-hmm. But yeah. And one of the big ideas that's like eating at me right now that I just like, I have to do it or else I won't be able to sleep is actually kind of related to 2 of those things. Mm-hmm. To my writer-performer side. So yeah, I think it's a really cool exercise.
It is. And I think it kind of ends this conversation with giving you a little homework, but that's hopefully kind of fun too. Because we did make this sound very hard and very scary. But that one is fun and hopefully a little bit more light.
Can it be like Jedi?
Well, yeah, but then what do you do about that?
Oh. Go out in your garage and practice your lightsaber moves. You could like take lightsaber class. They do like martial arts, like teach you how to like sword fight, but
or
Jedi style.
If you have an alternate life where you wanted to go to Hogwarts, which obviously, you can do Quidditch. They have Quidditch.
Yeah, and there's also like potions classes, like you can do like mixology or something.
Yeah, in fact, one of my clients sent me a thing that they were doing in New York, I think pre-COVID, where it was potion making, but it was drinks. But
it was learn how to read runes, probably.
Sure.
Get into hieroglyphics. Yeah, I don't know. Get creative. Okay, so we gotta wrap this up. I hope that this was relatable in that we are not pristine in any way. Like, no, this was down to earth, potentially like, down to earth, and then a few degrees below that. But
it also shows that we read books that we actually need to read because we both got called out pretty intensely in this one.
It can be hard to walk your talk sometimes.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe one day we'll come back having really done this and tell you how that prepared to have doing it.
Yeah, maybe. But I also think that the ideas that we have that have been triggered by what we have done in this book, we will be sharing at some point this year.
Yes.
Not ready to share them yet, but we'll share them.
Yeah. Yeah, they're in the works.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Good luck with The Artist's Way. Please let us know. If you try some of this and you have some big reactions, please tell us. We would like to feel validated.
This thing is a little bit like Hagrid's Book of Monsters.
Watch out what happens.
Where you have to like belt it so it doesn't bite you. I mean, it's not quite that bad, but there's a similarity. Okay. We will be back. I don't know. I think we're actually going to be back on Tuesday with an episode, a special episode.
Yes. And quick reminder that we are in the middle of coaching enrollment. So if you want to work with us, sign up and we'll have a chat. And that's that.
Yeah. I mean, if you just like the idea of working with two people who try very hard to like walk their talk, but sometimes fail and are human, and I hope can relate to you on that level, then let's talk.
I hope we're a little bit more relatable, maybe, if not slightly disappointing.
I'm not disappointed with myself. So that's really all that matters. If you're disappointed with me, then I don't need to
sorry about it,
but I don't need to hear it. So, all right. Talk to you later.
Bye.